I honestly don't know how it's possible, but the Broncos almost made history and almost lost at the exact same time. Welcome in, Broncos country, to the Broncos Breakdown by Chat Sports. My name is Moose. If you're seeing a more jovial Moose on this episode, it's not necessarily that I'm happier about where the Broncos state is, but if you recognize excellence where it is, this Broncos defense deserves all of its flowers. Now, that doesn't take away from the fact that the Broncos offense has been absolutely awful. But did you know the Broncos are the 9th defense in NFL history and just the second one in 25 years to record 30-plus sacks through 6 games? I think that's pretty incredible. And then in the exact same breath, I can say, how on earth do I feel worse about this team after hearing that great stat? Well, it's because Sean Payton said the exact same thing that I'm going to tell you in this episode. The penalty numbers, the discipline is still out of control. Now, we're going to break it down on this episode why I believe the Denver Broncos are not only shooting themselves in the foot every single week, but are on the precipice of being both a Super Bowl caliber team and also not a playoff contender at the exact same time. It's remarkable, the balance and the line that this team is walking. Now, before we do that, let me ask you what your panic level is on the Denver Broncos offense right now, because it's in the negatives if we're talking about the defense. I'm not, in fact, it's like negative panic points. I'm more panicked for other teams when they play the Denver Broncos defense. But offensively, after the end of the Philadelphia Eagles game, I would have told you it was like a 2 or a 3. Now I'm saying it's more like a 6 or a 7 because WTF, like what the fuck are we doing? And if I go back to the full breakdown of the numbers, if you told me the Broncos were going to hold the Jets to less than 100 yards total on the day, I would have told you the Broncos won this game 45-0. Honestly, that would have been my honest opinion. I would have said the Broncos won this game 45-0. And the fact that you win this game 13-11 is utterly laughable. Laughable. Because the fact of this game remains, you almost pulled off the single greatest defensive performance of all time and almost lost that football game. I just want that to resonate with you for a second. You had one of the greatest defensive performances ever, and you almost lost that football game. It's beyond pathetic. Something needs to change, and it needs to change quickly because I am a fan just like you. I want to see better football just like you. Here's what the Broncos defense was able to do today. 9 sacks, most of any team this entire NFL season. Check. 15 quarterback hits, most of any team this NFL football season. Check. 7 tackles for loss. Awesome. 4 passes defended, and probably the coolest stat out of all of this, -10 net passing yards allowed from the New York Jets. Check. And we still won by 2. I keep having to say it out loud because it doesn't sound like a real stat. But do you know what is a real stat? The penalties are consistently hurting you. And now, so much so that the Denver Broncos have just surpassed the New York Football Giants. Yep, happened today after the 3 o'clock slate of games. The Broncos are now the team with the most average penalty yards per game. Broncos penalty yards per game, either APY or AYPG. 82.2 penalty yards per game to the New York Giants 78.3. We are now number 1 in the NFL in penalty yards per game. I told you last week against the Philadelphia Eagles, that statistic alone will make you lose not only in the playoffs, but it'll keep you out of the playoffs. And we almost saw them lose to the worst team in the NFL. More on the Jets later on in this episode because, God damn, are they bad. But let's focus and hyperfixate real quick on the quarterback because I know there's going to be some people that get down there and they're going to say, oh, Bo Nix regressed again, went back to mid. I don't think it's on Bo Nix whatsoever. I think that the offense as a whole gets an automatic thumbs down for the way they played today. If you remember at the beginning of the game, Bo Nix was making throw after throw after throw. That touchdown pass to Nate Adkins, a couple of those throws where Bo rolls out to his right, hits his back foot, and throws on the run to Courtland Sutton. Bo has shown a lot of promise over the last couple of weeks. I know he's not completely satisfied, and neither should we, with his overall performance as a whole. But he is putting together nice quarters, nice moments where I know Bo's going to be fine in general. Like, from an overarching takeaway, Bo's going to be fine. I don't know what this offense needs to do in order to kickstart it. Because the truth is, there's only one person to blame. I was asked this by one Chat Sports producer. I was going to say his name, but I know he doesn't want to remain. It's not Producer Reed on the ones and twos. This was a different producer. He said, if you had to blame the Broncos' woes on offense today, but also throughout the entirety of the season, how much blame would you give Bo? And I said, probably like 15%. The rest of it goes to Sean Payton. And I hate saying that because I think Sean, from a play design perspective, is a genius. I think Sean, from a managing the game perspective, has unbelievable moments. I think from an X's and O's perspective, there is not 2 or 3 coaches outside of this man right here that understands the game and how to win better than he does. He is not a good play caller right now. He's not. My honest opinion is you got to give up the play calling at least this next week. Give it to Lombardi. Manage the game. Give it to Davis Webb. Manage the game. You have got to do something different, because if you continue to do the exact same thing over and over again, you're going to eventually ruin this team's chances of making the playoffs. Because while you can get away with this type of shit against the New York Jets, you cannot get away with it against the New York Giants, the Dallas Cowboys, the Houston Texans, the Kansas City Chiefs, the Green Bay Packers, or hell, the Chargers or the Raiders for that matter. Now, before we continue on with what I saw from this game, because sometimes I just don't get how this type of performance is possible, I have to tell you about our friends over at Prize Picks. You and I make decisions every single day, but on Prize Picks, being right can actually get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement this football season on Prize Picks, where it is good to be right. Prize Picks is the only app now that offers stacks, meaning you could pick the same player and up to 3 times in the exact same lineup. If you want the more on Josh Allen's passing yards, rushing yards, and touchdowns, you can do that now, all in the exact same lineup, only on Prize Picks. But also, follow other players directly on the app and copy their lineups in just one click. It is very easy to play. How do you do so? Pick the player, the more or less, on their stat projections, and then watch your money multiply. You can win up to 2,000 times your money this season on Prize Picks. Just download the app. Use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It is good to be right. So let's continue on and talking about how I just don't believe any of this could be real. Sean Payton is probably glazed more by this guy right here than any person in the media. He loves Sean Payton. Colin Cowherd, that is. And even Colin admits that the Chiefs made a living off of winning ugly last season, so he is giving the Broncos credit. But take a look at that last sentence. Didn't like the Jets' play calling at all on the final drive. A gift to the Denver Broncos. So even though you have a guy that quite literally has a personal and loving bias against to your head coach, he can even admit that, yeah, the Jets kind of gave that game up to you, especially on the last drive, where they had every opportunity to pass midfield, kick a field goal, to go up, and you would have had, what, a minute and change to go out and try to score another field goal. Now, maybe you could have done it, maybe you couldn't. But good God, the Jets might be the worst NFL team I've seen in 10 years. When is the last time you said to yourself, has there been a team that has been worse than the 0-16 Browns of like 10 years ago? And my answer is, this might be it. This might be the worst team I've seen in a decade. And I don't take any pleasure in saying that because, like, look, it's the Jets, right? They are going to be the team that gets the number 1 overall pick. They might lose their head coach in one season. Aaron Glenn was just hired. He might honestly lose his job before the season is over. I mean, to have negative passing yards in a game is just beyond ridiculous. And I feel bad for Jets fans. I really do, because your team is a dumpster fire. But my job is not to cover the Jets. It's to cover the Denver Broncos. And if we go through the Denver Broncos schedule really quick. Offensive woes against the Titans. Offensive woes against the Chargers. Offensive woes at the first half against the Philadelphia Eagles. And now offensive woes all game pretty much against the New York Jets. So you've played 6 games, Denver Broncos. And I would argue the only 2 games that you had good to slightly above good offense was against the Colts for a brief time and against the Cincinnati Bengals. So out of your 6 games, a third of them you're playing good offensive football. That won't fly against the New York Jets, the Dallas Cowboys. Oh, and by the way, it gets significantly harder as the season goes on. Texans, Raiders, Chiefs, Commanders. I don't want to hear about how bad the Raiders are, because that's a divisional football game. So division games are automatically harder. So you've got Texans, division, and then the Commanders. That's 3 games in a row based off of what we just saw that you could absolutely lose. The Texans have about as bad of an offensive line as the New York Jets do right now, but they are significantly better than the New York Football Jets. So there's 4 games right there. And then if you end out the season, the Packers look great. The Jaguars look far better than anybody predicted. And then Chiefs and Chargers. So it only gets harder as the season goes on. In fact, the Denver Broncos might have one of the toughest schedules now on paper in the National Football League going forward. So thank God you're 4-2. But if you peak at this time, you're fucked. Sorry. This should be a major wake-up call. It has to be. Because if it isn't, this is going to be a very, very long season for the remainder of 2025. And the only question that I can ask you is not how you're feeling about the Broncos or are you happy that we're on a 3-game win streak? Nope. There's one question that I'm going to leave you with. Should Sean Payton give up play calling today? Yes. Yes, he should. If he's serious about giving this team the best chance to win, it is in the hands of either Joe Lombardi or Davis Webb. He's got to give up the play calling, at least right now. Maybe eventually, if Joe doesn't, look up to snuff, or if it's not good on Davis Webb, then maybe you can take it back over and get the trains back on the track if need be. But right now, you're doing about as bad a job of play calling for this team as I would. Period. That's all I got to say. A reminder to like the video if you haven't already. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And I apologize if this makes anybody feel like, God, he's making it sound like we lost the game. Yeah, a win is a win. But you got to show me something better than what I saw today. Because next week against the Giants, another real test comes about. Mile high salute to you. Be cool.